Egberto Willies does a daily. He gets up at like 5 a.m. and he does a daily show on KPFT, which is the Pacifica station in Houston, Texas, which is could be a scary place to do progressive radio.
Yes, it is.
And he does it every day. He gets up, or at least every weekday. He's on the air. He's a popular guy. He has to prepare shows every day. He writes, he sings, he dances. No, I don't know if he does that. But, and I got one of I'm on Egberto's mailing list twice a day. I get two things. And today he wrote about, AIPAc, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. I think that's what it's called. And Jamaal Bowman, and aiming their arrows at Jamaal Bowman, who is, I hope, is going to be on our show several times. He's been on 3 times already. We're going to get him on a bunch more times. They're aiming at Jamaal Bowman. They are running a candidate against Jamaal Bowman. For folks who have their head in the sand, Jamaal Bowman is a former New York City high school principal, like one of the most outstanding educational leaders in the city, who got elected to Congress in 2020. And, he beat, a long-standing, just like AOC, he beat a long-standing, member of Congress in the Democratic primary, and has now been in Congress for 4 years, joined the squad right away. He's different though, right? He's a little older. He's very soft-spoken in some ways, and he's gotten himself into trouble. But I'm going to let Egberto talk more. And now he's in people's, I had to use gun analogies, but he's in the sights of a bunch of rifles coming from somewhere. So, Egberto, first of all, how is it down in Houston these days? You guys surviving Greg Abbott and the red wave all over Texas?
Well, it's interesting because everywhere else is doing fine. The progressives are making much better headway than we have in Texas thus far. And mostly it's because I don't think a lot of the people in Texas have the faith that they need to have, that they can make a difference, that they are not only the plurality, but the majority, just a non-voting group of folk here. So we're working hard to kind of change that around and make sure that people get that belief that, after all, these charlatans that are running Austin, Texas, we can actually beat them. And we've started it slowly, but we've started it. It's a difficult fight, as you know, but because it's also a difficult fight because when you have a Democratic Party that instead of fighting head on with the Republican Party that's harming people, decide to attempt to make alliances that will never work for them, it presents a problem. Those are the things that we're trying to extricate. Right here in Harris County, we're working to make sure that those politicians that are trying to keep their feet in both planes are actually extricated out of the system. So it's difficult, but we're getting it done. And watching what Bowman is doing also, it seems like he's having a bit of a problem as well with his own party.
So explain to people because your article wasn't about the Democratic Party, although he has a Democratic component.
Right.
Somebody who I've also had on my show too, George Latimer, who, when he got elected, was somebody who progressives worked really hard for. Mm-hmm. What is the American Israeli Political Action Committee, which people just know as AIPAc?
Yeah.
What is that?
AIPAC is a very, very powerful lobbying organization. They have a lot of money, deep pockets. Many times we don't know where all those funds that fund this organization comes from, but I would wager that, whenever we talk about Israel, Israel is an independent country, but Israel is also, because it's the country that it's the Jewish homeland, if you will. Just about everybody that feel themselves a part of the Jewish homeland will support will support whatever it is that AIPAC has to support. And what AIPAC has been doing for decades is keeping politicians in check. In other words, the one thing Republicans and Democrats shared in common is that they never went, or they tried their best not to go against AIPAC. In other words, if AIPAC says Israel wants ABC, Israel gets ABC. And while I'm speaking about this, I want to make sure that people understand this. We're not talking about Jewish stuff here. We're talking about the state of Israel. And it's important that people get that distinction, because too often that distinction isn't made. And then at that point, the anti-Semitic trope is used. I don't allow the anti-Semitic trope because I make sure that the things that I say is sanctioned, and also I make sure make sure that as I say them, I corroborate it with my Jewish brothers and sisters, some on the right and some on the left. So, I mean, it is important that people understand that. But going back to AIPAC specifically, they don't. AIPAC decides what's going to get done with regards to the politicians that get elected and so forth, where they have power. In the article, what I try to make clear is that it is an anti-democratic process, because what happens now is we have this particular lobbying organization, and this goes with any lobbying organization. The thing with AIPAC is that AIPAC is powerful. AIPAC has the deep pockets, and when it has the deep pockets, it means that you can get results. In our current system that has Citizens United and all these other McCutcheon and all these other rules that allow the individual or the corporations to do as they please. So AIPAC decided that it was going to come against Bowman. And the first ad that they did on Bowman was a striking ad, misleading, but striking, something that I think all of us in the progressive space, if you will, have to make sure to counteract, because we can't allow any one organization to decide that they're going to control everything that any particular politician does or doesn't do.
And what did they do in that ad? What did they say?
They said that he was against Israel. The one thing they didn't say, and I should have had the commercial queued up. I don't. They never called him anti-Semitic. They never said that, because who could possibly say that about Bowman? But it was a commercial that made it seem like he was weak. He was anti-Israel. In other words, he was taking the position of Hamas, which is one of the other things that they do. You're either with Netanyahu or you are with Hamas, not anywhere in between. That's what they take. And that is a trope on my programs I don't allow. In other words, I am not going to allow somebody to make the assumption that speaking out against Netanyahu or the Netanyahu-driven IDF is somehow going to make someone anti-Semitic. Instead, we call ourselves, we're supporting humanity.
So, and what AIPAC spends money, and sometimes they spend money in multiple ways. I know in my congressional district had an open seat, which in New York City is a rare thing to have. We had an open seat was it only last year? Feels like a million years ago. In 2022, we had an open seat, and there were 12, 13 candidates running. One of those, Mondier Jones, who's now back up in Rockland trying to beat this guy Lawler. The candidates included like Bill de Blasio, who dropped out, and Yuli New, who came in second, and a guy named Dan Goldman. And Dan Goldman, who is a Levi Strauss heir and is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, spent his own 5 or 6 or 7, nobody knows exactly how much, $1 million on his campaign. Mm-hmm. He won with 24.5% against Yulin getting like 23.9%. But something called the New York Progressive Action PAC put out scathing mailings against Yulin. They called her an anti-Semite. They called her anti-tenant. They called her anti-gay, whatever. They just smeared up and down. And then it turned out that the New York Progressive Action PAC, which my my political home is the New York Progressive Action Network. We almost went to court to stop the use of the name. Was totally funded by AIPAc.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not only did Goldman have his own, fortune to spend, but they spent another bunch of millions of dollars on flooding. And now they seem to they've decided to target a lot of members of the squad.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so how do they do that? What's their mechanism for doing that? They spend money on.
You just stated one. They have somebody running against Cori Bush in Missouri. They have somebody, of course, running against Bowman in New York, and they're going to use several methods. And the thing about it, a lot of these methods we won't find out till after the election. When all the numbers are put together, it's like how you just found out, oh, it turns out that this progressive group was really funded by AIPAc. So their intent really is to they're looking for, I think I read, they were seeking somebody to support them with $20 million to go after Rashida Tlaib. So, they are simply going to throw money wherever it sticks. And that's the intent. They believe they'll be successful. I think that the squad this time, I shouldn't say this time, because they have never really been able to beat the squad as a whole. Otherwise, AOC would not be there right now. If you recall, they put somebody up against her a few, I think the last cycle or the cycle before that. But I think that these people are sufficiently robust and the progressive movement is sufficiently strong to hold the line. But what we cannot do, the progressive movement, that is to not fight back hard. But let me tell you better. The other thing that I'm telling folks, like, right here in Houston, it's not enough to just fight back. What we have to do is make it unprofitable for them to make an attempt the next time to do this. In other words, we want to ensure that they lose that entire $100 million as they put it out there to try to put down progressive politicians that are humane, progressive politicians that are simply looking about saving lives, not being anti-Israel or anything of that sort, just saving lives. 15,000 dead Palestinians doesn't do anything to help any single person of Jewish descent, any single Israeli. In fact, what it will do and what it has started to do is create what you well know is blowback. So Arthur, you know that well. Whenever you have asymmetric type wars or whatever, the side that is asymmetrically on the low side responds quite a bit differently, and that's what we should be expecting. Today in one of the hearings, the director of the FBI said he has never seen so many blinking lights before. Does that tell you something? By the way, just I was looking for some expert's opinion about AIPAc, and I found I found your show on the air. AIPAC is the American it stands for
American Israel Public Affairs Committee, not American Political Action Committee. American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Now, you said on your show, maybe 2 weeks ago, that AIPAC was going to spend $100 million to try to defeat Jamaal Bowman. Is
not only Jamaal Bowman? That may be. I may have. It's Jamaal Bowman and the squad. That's their budget to defeat Jamaal Bowman and the squad.
Okay. So what do people? Well, you're allowed to say what you want on my show about a candidate. I'm not allowed to say who people should. But how do you counter something like that? How do you counter $100 million?
Well, money doesn't vote. And that's what I tell people all of the time. First of all, on my show, I can't say go vote for Bowman. But on your show, I can say every New Yorker who is in Bowman's district would be crazy not to vote for Bowman. And why would that be the case? If we take a look at some of the person that is running against Bowman right now is a guy called, and you know this person, his name is George Latimer. Okay. George Latimer is a 70-year-old guy. Now, I'm not complaining about the 70-year-old guy, but when he goes out and he says that that Bowman is out of he pretty much says Bowman is naive to believe that a ceasefire is what we need. He makes it clear that the reason he's running against Bowman is Bowman's position on Israel. Nowhere inside of Mr. Latimer's commentary was anything about, I am coming to solve the problems of Bowman's district, the district that Bowman serves, that he's not doing well in. He's not talking about, let's go ahead and create jobs. Let's go ahead and take care of the issues that matter to the citizens of
Westchester.
Westchester. He's not saying that. He never mentioned that. So the question is, he's running as the person representing a foreign government, the ideals of a foreign government, because he's saying nothing whatsoever with regards to what he's going to do for the people of Westchester. Nothing.
Well, I have to say, I mean, Jamaal is a friend of mine. I've done legal work for him. Jamaal had to be one of the most, in the progressive community, on this show, I was very critical of a lot of ways people came out right away after October 7th, excusing Hamas, using the word but, using the word context. To me, there's no context and there's no buts for murdering and raping, beheading, and doing whatever they did to civilians in Israel. And Jamaal came out and he denounced Hamas. AOC did the same thing and didn't use the word but. Mm-hmm. Didn't use the word understand the context. He understood and still has tried to meet with, there's a lot of Jews that live in Westchester County where there's also, it happens to be a 50% black district, which is probably how he got elected.
Let me just say one thing, because I've heard a lot of Jewish people speak about Jamaal. He got a ton of Jewish votes. They really love his character.
Right. And he's so thoughtful. He is such a thoughtful guy. He's passionate, but he is extremely thoughtful. And his discussions about Israel and Hamas and Palestine and the right to Palestinians and how you deal with that intractable situation there is very thoughtful, which frankly is the only way to deal with it. If you come out beating your chest on one side or the other, you're missing, to me, that's my opinion, you are missing how complex the whole discussion has to be. Yes. And he deals with it in a complex way, but he's going to get painted as an anti-Semite by AIPAc. And it's unfortunate, like George Latimer said he's thinking of running. He went to Israel first.
Yes.
Came back from Israel, got off the plane and said, I'm running. George Latimer, who is the Westchester County executive and never had to do anything about Israel or foreign policy. A nice, good guy. Did a really good job for the last 6 years. So, it's very, very scary. But
let me tell you, if I may say, Arthur, I think that was a mistake on the part of Latimer. And I think that is that when if done correctly, with the right amount of, what's the word that I want to use? With the right of compassion, of empathy, that before he ran for the position, he went to Israel and then came back and ran in a domestic election. There is a commercial, there is an ad that is waiting to be written, whether he's there to represent his population, his entire district, or he's there to represent Netanyahu. And given that he met with Netanyahu, as I recall, when he went to Israel, there is an ad to be made without affecting Jewish sensibilities. Because remember, Netanyahu is not a loved quantity in Israel. Also, there is a distinct group of Israeli Jews in New York that are a part of the progressive movement who wants to actually solve the wants a two-state solution, want to treat Palestinians like human beings. And these are Jewish New Yorkers we're talking about. So I think well-placed ads, well-placed coming on stations, doing the interviews with you right there in the district, right, is what Bowman needs to be. I don't think Bowman needs to be hiding or just kind of staying quiet. I think he has to actively campaign in the Jewish community, and there are going to be a large percentage that are just going to buy the thing like, well, whatever Netanyahu says, but Netanyahu is not liked in Israel. So I think if he goes ahead and says, well, look, Mr. Latimer, which is a fact, is now an agent for Netanyahu. Mr. Latimer went to Israel, and because of the position that Bowman has taken, which is anathema or is not the position that Netanyahu wants, he is going to run against Bowman. Who is he there to serve?
And I have to cut you off, Egberto. We got to do this some more.
Yes.
You have a much better voice than me for radio. We have to do this some more. Thank you so much, Egberto Willies, who is a daily host on KPFT in Houston. I'm sure it's online if you want to listen to Egberto. Well, if it's online, you can listen live. And it's probably also
you can go to politicsdoneright.tv.
Okay, politicsdoneright.tv. You can see Egberto every day. He's on the air.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.